Hello, welcome tonight to the Precinct Convention training from the Training and Development Committee for the Harris County Republican Party. Hello, I'm Charlotte Lampe. I'm Chair of Training and Development. I'd like to show that Chris is going to help us tonight. So is Cindy, Glenn, Nancy, Lynn, Margie, and Ken is going to be filming tonight. There we go. So if we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and then if you would stand, please, and then we'll have a prayer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pledge to the Texas flag.
Okay, we're off to a good start.
Here we go. Flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
We bow in gratitude, dear God, for the privilege of meeting together in friendship and fellowship, and for the privilege of living in a country that allows us that right. We ask your blessing for all our elected officials in all level of government and on our troops deployed around the world to protect that freedom. We ask your blessing on the leaders of this organization that they may lead us to accomplish our goals through your counsel. Lord, help us see past the differences that divide us to what we have in common in your love and your love for our love for our country. Thank you for the many blessings of family, friends, country, and heritage, and the place each of us call home. God, let us remember that our prayer, the best prayer, is the one that begins and ends with thy will be done. Amen. If I could ask everybody to put their phone on silent, that would be really great. It'll help us get through the evening. And I'm going to start. Usually I always like to introduce, at least let us know who's here tonight. I'm going to start with how many people are elected officials. Well, you know what? I was saying that to kind of doing it with people, and actually precinct chairs are elected officials. So I'm going to start with my favorite people in the room. Let's see it for precinct chairs. All right, there you go. Glad to see you here. And we have an SREC chair. And what does SRE stand for?
State Republican Executive Committee, which will be in your glossary at the end of your book.
Okay. Do we have any Senate district reps here? All right. Well, we're going to get started tonight. We're going to start with when we're going to give you the presentation here. If you have any questions, please ask. We want to keep up with the questions. However, in some of this program, it's very sequential, so there'll be questions that probably will come up that we can answer. But feel free, we want to hear your answers. There's also going to be an evaluation sheet in your pamphlet. We really want to be able to make sure that we're nailing every question and every need that you have when you're going to be doing your precinct chair convention. How many people have done a precinct convention before? All right. Well, we're glad to see you here, so it's good to see. So there's been some few minor tweaks, maybe some things that you haven't done, so do a heads up. And we're going to start with Chris. Thank you.
Good evening, y'all. As you said, I'm Chris McDonald. By profession, I'm a police lieutenant, and part-time and hobby is cars and politics. I personally got involved in politics. Of course, as a young man, I actively began voting once I was eligible. However, 2010 was my call to action. In 2010, I had 2 years of our current president. I was upset. I was wondering, how could this have happened, that our nation is going in the wrong direction? And why is it that us within the Republican Party did not have the necessary candidates to go out and make a difference? So where are those people? And as I asked that question, I had to look inwardly to myself and say, well, who am I? What can I do? So I looked about and found that I was qualified to be constable. There was not a nominee at the time. My area is strongly Democrat in Precinct 2. However, I paid my money, I did my campaign, invested 2 years and a lot of personal finances and time to eventually become our 2012 Republican nominee for Constable Precinct 2. Did not win that election, unfortunately, because it is still about a 60-40 split as far as the Orbis goes. The Orbis is a number that a certain area has been analyzed, and it's based upon government or presidential elections that say how that particular district votes. So unfortunately, we only moved the polls by about 1% of the Orbis number after 2 years of work. So there's a lot of truth that some things are drawn the way they are, and we can't always win every one. But it's our goal here as Republicans to win everyone as possible and further to get more people to our side. So that's my story. I eventually continued running, stayed active within our party when I didn't win the election in 2012. I went on to represent my Senate district, where I was elected to be the State Republican Executive Committee Chairman. And so currently I serve SD6 as a member of the Republican Party of Texas, which is the board of directors essentially. Just as you are precinct chairs here and our directors within the Harris County Republican Party, I'll hold that position within our state party. As we begin to present this process, you're going to see that it builds on one another. The process is repetitive. What happens at the precinct convention level is a carbon copy of what's going to happen at the next step in the Senate district level, which in turn also is a carbon copy format of what will progress on to the state convention. At state convention, you will at one point meet within your congressional district, which is where we develop our national membership, and you can try and get elected to go serve at the Republican National Convention. So we are starting right now at the grassroots. There's no more important position and no more greater opportunity than you, our grassroots member, here at the precinct chair position. So I just did an overview of the structure of the party, and here is currently how it's set. In Texas, we don't have a registered Democrat, nor do we have a registered Republican system. You might hear some folks up in the north say, well, I'm a registered this or I'm a registered that. In Texas, it's all determined by the primary in which you choose to cast your vote. If you are not, have not cast your vote in a particular primary, in order to participate in a party convention, you then must sign an oath of affiliation, which is a form that is provided in your precinct chair packets, and that person will sign and swear their allegiance to the party. At that point, once that form is signed, if someone votes in the opposite party's poll, it is a state violation of election law for which they can be prosecuted. Here, if someone signs an oath of affiliation and participates within one party's process, but then also goes and votes in the other party's process, that person has violated Texas election code and is then subject to prosecution. So, for instance, once you affiliate with the Republican Party, you must and only vote in the Republican primary process, and you may only participate within the Republican Party convention system. You may not jump to the Democrat side. Now, at the general election, you can vote for whoever you feel is the best candidate, regardless of their party. But during the primary process, once you've affiliated, to affiliate with the other party would be a violation of law. We will be covering that here in just a little bit. Again, we are in open primaries within Texas, so you can go vote in either primary. As talked about here, this is the discussion regarding taking the oath. It's required by Election Code 162-008.
Question.
Go ahead, sir.
Both parties, is that applicable to both parties of party identification?
Yes, this process that we're discussing is election law, and election law is bound equally to both parties or other parties such as the Libertarian Party if they had had such a representation. So if you do not vote in a primary or runoff or identify yourself via oath of affiliation, then you are classified as an independent or an unidentified voter when it comes to voter rolls. Voter rolls are maintained usually by parties, and those things are used by various candidates to identify who it is that might vote for them later on in the political process. That's why you get knocks at your door or sometimes telephone calls or robocalls, is because you've been identified as a potential voter for that particular party. This is our overview of our structure. The Republican Party, starting at the beginning with the Republican National Committee. Just like HCRP and RPT, the Republican Party of Texas, the RNC is headed by a chairman. Our current chairman is Reince Priebus, and it's made up of its executive committee, which are the voting members from each of the 50 states, the District of Columbia, and the 4 U.S. territories. The party chair here within Texas is also elected every 2 years at state convention. Our current party chair is Mr. Tom Meckler. At that convention, we also elect our delegates to the Republican National Committee. Currently, our delegates are from Houston, Dr. Robin Armstrong, committee man, and the committee woman is Ms. Tony Ann DeShiel. They are voting members on the Republican National Committee that help determine what the policies, platforms, and direction of the RNC is. Each one of those persons pictured have an equal voting strength. The chairman, the national committee man, and the national committee woman. And they represent Texas to the RNC. Here locally in Texas, our executive committee consists of the chairman, which is Tom Meckler, our vice chair, which is Amy Clark. Then you have 62 state Republican executive committee members from each of the 31 Senate districts. You have a man and a woman elected from each SD. You will be doing that whenever you get to your Senate district convention, which we'll be talking about later. That's where the term SREC comes in with regard to me. I serve on this executive committee as committee man from Senate District 6. Now here locally, getting it back to the ground roots level, Harris County Republican Party, of course, is currently headed up by an executive committee, and our county chairman is Paul Simpson. Here within the precinct level, we have 1,012 precincts in Harris County. These precincts are divided up each year whenever, after a census is done, and the state legislature adjusts the boundaries in accordance with Voting Rights Act and the census itself. So currently we have 1,012 precincts. So we could have a maximum of 1,012 precinct chairs here that are members of our executive committee. Not all are full at this time, but we are certainly working to that level. And I will say that we have more precinct chairs now than we have as long as I've been active in this party. And I commend Chairman Simpson on that and each of you for volunteering to serve in that capacity. Now, at the precinct level, you can choose to subdivide your precinct into smaller groups. If you get volunteers to assist you, you would have a block captain, someone assigned to each one of those particular streets that's within your precinct, and they agree to assist you in getting out the word to their various neighbors and sharing information. And then you can have volunteers that help you with training, development, and getting the vote out. Texas is on a 4-year election cycle, so I can make this kind of continuous and understanding from where we're at right now. Currently, we're in that election cycle year 4. This is even-numbered year 2016. Currently, what we're doing here in March, we're holding our primary election. We're having precinct conventions, which will then lead on to the Senate district and county conventions, which will lead to, in May, we will hold our Texas convention, and then July, we go to our national convention, and in November, we will have our general presidential election. So then year 1 is actually an off year as far as elections go. During year 1, which are odd number years, next one will be come up in 2017. At that particular time in January, whoever our elected president shall be inaugurated. We will go January through May. All of our state legislatures that have been elected, they will seat and go into session. Texas is what's known as a biannual state, which means we have to get the business of our state done within 6 months every 2 years. So that's why there is a mad dash for Austin for these 6-month periods, because that's where we pass, retract, and create all law that is applicable to the state of Texas. after legislative session is over, oftentimes there are constitutional amendments created in that time which will require citizen approval to pass. One of the most recent examples that we have was they put on the state election a constitutional amendment to permit Texas to move water from a savings fund to go to the road fund so that we can work on our state's infrastructure. That amendment passed. So going on to December is when candidates start stepping up to run for office, and even you as a party elected official would file to run for office during the primary election filing period of December, year 1. Year 2, our next one is 2018. This is what's known as the governor election cycle year. In March, again, we will have a primary election for those state positions, such as the governor and lieutenant governor. We will again go through the same process that we're doing now, having a primary election, precinct conventions, Senate district and county conventions, which will then lead to May, where we will have a 2-day state convention to conduct the business of the Republican Party of Texas. Then November, we will go on to the governor's election. Year 3 of this process, next one set for 2019. In 2019, January, our governor will take office along with the lieutenant governor. January through May, we will have another biannual session of Texas legislatures to meet. Then again in November, any sorts of amendments that were passed by the legislature will be voted on by we the people. And then we're back to the December process of filing for office once again. Political conventions. That's what this is all about here. We're trying to make sure everyone is involved and engaged into the process of their government. Let me tell you, we're certainly in one of the most unique years ever given politically. Our nominees, our current candidates, let me say that, for the Republican side, have brought out issues and voters like you've never seen before. Having currently our 3 candidates listed only by last polling numbers being Mr. Donald Trump, Mr. Marco Rubio, and Senator Ted Cruz from Texas, has really struck out the issues. One candidate's brashness is drawing out a slew of voters like we've never seen before. I just came back from South Carolina volunteering for the Ted Cruz campaign, and as we were knocking on doors, we're surprised, first of all, at many people that had not decided yet who it was they were voting for, but also we were very much aware of how upset the electorate is with the current state of our nation. And we as party officials have to recognize that, work within it, and support everyone's right to participate in that process. As you support that right, though, you need to be aware of what might be coming at you here soon. So we'll get into that. Political conventions, the roadmap. As we touched on earlier, everything builds from the lower level to the top, and it's pretty much a carbon copy process of the other. It starts at your precinct convention, goes next to your Senate district convention, which is also held concurrently and is our Harris County convention, state convention, and then national. Starting at the bottom of this slide, and we'll work up. Voters in the primary, going up to the right, elect their precinct chairs, who also elect a county chair for our party. Those persons make up the County Executive Committee on the right, which is HCRP. Now we'll go over here to the left. Those that may attend the precinct convention are those that voted or affiliated with the party. At your precinct convention, your goal there is several things. First of all, you elect delegates to the county or SD convention. In addition to electing delegates, there will also be an opportunity to discuss and pass resolutions within the convention. A resolution is not law. We are not legislators. However, we can set the tone for the legislature and let the legislature know what the party believes should be priorities. So a resolution is just an intent or belief. It's what you commonly see with all the whereas and be it resolved. Essentially, you yourself as a precinct chair should have some things that you want addressed at your convention that maybe you are happy with or you are not happy with. in writing that out, you simply put the title of what it is your goal is, state your case sentence by sentence in the whereas section, and then at the end state what your remedy for that solution is. Put, be it resolved that precinct number blank says this, and then sign it. You will make copies, present that to your people, and seek to pass those up within your party. One thing that I want you to be aware of right now, there is a large group of people and activists that are seeking to take part within your party. I like that because that's what we're here for. We're here to espouse the American way and activism. But you as a precinct chair, in my opinion, have earned the right to control your precinct chair. You have been elected by your people. So I encourage you to be prepared at 7 o'clock when the time comes to take your precinct packet and start and prepare to bring your convention into motion.
Yes, ma'am.
The slide just before this on the resolutions, you said put the title,
Yes, ma'am. Later on,
your case, and then the whereas section, is that it?
yes, your title, whereas, and be it resolved. And that essentially is the format of a resolution. And I believe that's going to be addressed deeper later on within this overview. Get organized prior to having your precinct caucus. That's one thing that we want to encourage you, and that is the reason for being here, is to get you organized and prepared. Talk to people within your precinct who are willing to be part of this precinct convention process with you. And at that point, you should, prior to the meeting that is currently set for March 1st, the precinct chairman Simpson has called on us to have our precinct chairs immediately after the elections are concluded. So that will be this March 1st. So somewhere between now and March 1st, you should have a pre-convention meeting with persons within your area to discuss who will assume chairmanship, who will serve on resolutions committees, who will act as secretary, and any issues that y'all may wish to bring forth so that you can be prepared and organized. I don't know about your precinct. Some precincts may be larger and more active than others. If you know that you're an active precinct, I would encourage you to have a pre-meeting. Yes, sir.
Is the precinct chair normally the convention chair?
Normally, the precinct chair is, normally, but not guaranteed. So be prepared, and Charlotte will address that later on.
Everybody looks over here.
During this process of being prepared, you will try and discuss who will take on role of the convention chair. You also, who will take convention secretary. Other positions include sergeant at arms, who would like to be a delegate and alternate to the SD convention. You have the same number of alternates that you do have delegates that are allowed to go to the convention. The delegate will be the person on the floor at all times, but anytime that other person steps away from the floor, then the alternate shall fill his spot. Yes, sir, in the back.
In my precinct, the existing precinct chair has competition. If the new guy wins, who's in charge?
Well, we will not know that until this election is over. So the current precinct chair as of March 1st, the person who is running and holding at that time is assumed to be the convention chair at that time. But there's some more discussion to continue on that. Go ahead, sir.
In 2012, I got elected on the Republican, and the convention is in my precinct. But after I closed the machine up and I wait 30 minutes and no other precinct come in. So in that case, what we have to do?
Is the question that if no one else shows up for your precinct chair, what do? Your precinct convention. If no one else shows up for your precinct convention, you can have a convention of one. So you can take your minutes, fill out your forms, insert any resolutions that you have individually passed, then you can sign it and move on and submit your stuff later. One thing I want you to be aware of, you may organize and continue to put together a slate of persons that want to fill those positions. To be prepared, you can use a group of candidates running on a common platform, and you can decide as individuals, will we vote for this slate or others? This is your choice. You might also talk about resolutions. What will they be? Who in this group will introduce them? Who will second that motion so that you can have a discussion and then speak for or against those particular resolutions? Also, how will you document the video, whether you choose to have it audio recorded, video recorded, or have your secretary take handwritten notes. Now, I want y'all to be aware that right now, as I said, this is a very unique election. Many people are getting active. I personally have received contacts from at least 5 people, 5 groups, indicating they certainly wish to assert their right within our political and democratic process, which is certainly the thing to do. But you as convention chair, I don't want you to be caught blindsided. The Texas National Movement is one that is pushing for certain resolutions to be put forth that includes secession. The Republican Liberty Caucus is putting forth a whole pack of resolutions to include doing away with the current political system in Texas, where you would meet and you would vote by caucus only, not the primary system as we currently do. Also seeking to legalize marijuana and a whole other packet of issues. You also have a very heated chairman's race for the Republican Party of Texas, each person possibly sending their own delegates within your precinct to seek their support so that they can get elected to SD and then go on to the state convention. So as a precinct chair, just be prepared, run your election. If you're not able to take your packet at 7 o'clock, have worked out in this particular process who's going to show up at the polls and take possession of your precinct chair packet at 7 o'clock. During the convention process, your purpose is, of course, elect these delegates to move up to the next level and pass resolutions and platform planks. Your resolutions can ultimately become platform planks. If you have any that you particularly want, you can address them, discuss them, and forward them up.
Questions?
Yes, sir.
If no one shows up at your convention, how do you elect delegates?
If no one shows up at that point, you are the delegate. You can elect yourself, and also other persons can request an opportunity and appeal to their SD chair if they want to go but were not able to come to the event. But at that point, yes, or the persons can submit their name without being present to you and ask that it be included in the secretarial minutes.
Now, when you do resolutions, after you do whatever you do, it gets passed on. I know you can touch this in a second. It gets passed on. I'm sorry.
They get passed on, and somebody decides whether or not they're going to make it to the
state. Is that correct?
Yes. What usually happens is you go in Robert's Rules of Order, which is later on in the packet. You will introduce the item. It will be seconded. There'll be discussion for and against, and someone at some point will call a question, which means you vote on whether your precinct is in support of passing this up or not, and then it would die. So at this point, we'll turn this section of the program on to our chairman of the Training and Development Committee, Ms. Charlotte Lampe.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, well, thank you, Chris.
Thank you for your service, Chris.
Yes, sir.
All right. For when is the precinct convention going to happen? Can anybody tell me? March 1st. What time is it going to happen? 7:30. All right.
The packet says 7:30.
Yeah, it says 7:30. Yes, that's correct. Now, what you're going to do about taking that packet is you're going to take the packet at 7:01. Now, who takes that packet? Okay, the precinct chair. If they don't have an opponent, that's who takes that chair.
Packet.
We're going to get to that. Joan. So if you call...
Don't we have to take the election results too?
We're going to get to that. That's a great question. Who takes those election results to the receiver? That's a really good question. So if you call, what you're going to do is you're going to take the packet, and we're going to get to that, who takes the packet. But when you're going to take that packet, if you're the precinct chair, and you don't have an opponent, then you are the presumed temporary, now let's follow this, temporary precinct convention chair. Now, what happens if you have an opponent? Quite frankly, anyone at 7:01 can take that packet.
Take it from where?
From the election judge. What it's going to be is there's going to be a packet that's going to have all your information, and your election judge will keep this. And they will have this in your possession. And at 7:01, that means that this packet is up for grabs. But if you are a precinct chair and you're the election judge, or you're a precinct chair and not having let's say you have somebody else doing your election process. You may pick that up. That is yours at 7:01. It's presumed yours at 7:01. But if you do have an opponent, then whomever gets there at 7:01, it gets that. Now, that precinct chair, that temporary precinct convention chair will call the meeting to order at 7:30. At 7:30, if there are any voters still in line, then you will recess. And you may recess until all those voters, I've been through the process, and then you will reconvene. So what is the purpose for having a precinct chair convention? It's to elect delegates, and it's also to pass resolutions. So who may participate in the process? Up here it says, and these are themes that we're working, is it says here that if you voted in the precinct, but do you have to participate in the precinct convention? Do you have to have voted?
No.
That's on the next page. But no, you do not have to vote. But if you have not voted, you do have to swear an oath of affiliation. Now, I don't think that because of voter ID, and this has been a change since voter ID, a lot of people are not bringing in their voter registration cards. So you're not going to have, I think, anything to stamp the cards. But you will, what we've been told, is that you will have a party affiliation slip that you might want to tell them to keep that so that they can have that. But there's also various ways to check. So, again, you do not have to have voted to participate in the precinct convention. However, you would have to vote. You would have to do an oath of affiliation. And what is the number one criteria for participating in a precinct convention?
Registered to vote in the precinct.
You have to be registered in there. Thank you, sir. That is, did you hear it? What's the number one criteria is you have to be registered in that precinct to be able to participate in that precinct. And these are the various verification sources on what you're doing. You have harris.votes, and then you have the Harris County Tax Office. Why do you do the tax office? It's because that proves where you live. So those are two sources, and then there's one other source that you're going to have to verify who's in that precinct, and what is that going to be? That's going to be your roll call book. That's going to be who's voted in that. So who cannot participate in the process?
Democrat.
That's right. Those that are not registered in the precinct that's holding the precinct convention may not participate.
Madam, my experience is that the verifying source is about 50% reliable in terms of being able to give information, and then you have to call. Are they going to be open at 7 o'clock?
How late will they be open is the question downtown.
Well, that's a really good question. In fact, write that on the deal so we can clarify that one. I'm hoping that since we're going to be in convention session this year, that they will be open quite late. And I think before we're all over tonight, we'll get you that answer, and we'll get you that specifically so no one goes away with any fuzzy questions. But that's a very good point. The roll call books will, again, what I'm calling the voter register, will be a really good, because that's going to have who voted and who lives there anyway, whether they voted or not. But if you can't verify party, what do you do? Oath of affiliation if they want to come in there. I'm just going to keep on going that. So, in most cases, the election poll place will be where you have your precinct convention. That will be where it is. And if the primary election poll has more than one combined precinct and the visiting precinct, this pays attention, you have to notify the HCRP primary director in advance. The location has to be timely posted at Commissioner's Court. And there has to be a notice in the location of the alternate position, of the alternate location. It has to be posted from 7 a.m. throughout the day at the polling place that it's at. Now here's what you can't say, okay, it's it's at Mary Smith's house. You can't do that. There's going to be, and if you can look at that, it's pretty self-explanatory that you have to explain explicitly where it is. And one of the things that I'd really like you to pay attention to is it must be within the physical boundaries of the voting precinct, and it also must be handicap accessible. So who's in charge? This is the one where we're talking about, is the temporary precinct convention chair that takes possession of the precinct packet and calls the precinct convention to order. When can the precinct convention chair take possession of the envelope?
7:01.
There we go. And the presumed to be the temporary precinct chair is the incumbent precinct chair. Now, let's go here to say, I wanted to say thank you to all the precinct chairs, but how many election judges that we have, or alternate judges, do we have here in our audience today? Okay. Oh, good. Thank you so much. All right.
Question. Can you go back to the previous one? Okay, but it says the alternate location must be within the physical boundaries of the voting precinct. And if you've combined precincts,
If you've combined, that's a very good question. If you want to have a combined precinct, if you're, let's say you're over here, you're over here in 828, and there's combining, there's 405 and there's 6304 or whatever. Those precincts will have to go to 405 and 603 or whatever. Or they can have it in the same spot, but you have to have it separate.
and in a separate room. In other words, you can have it in the bowling. I'm going to use Sosa Center right in,
Yes.
that.
Now, a separate corner. If you don't have it big enough, you can have a separate corner. Yes.
Okay. So all the precincts that are voting at that polling location can have their precinct at that voting location.
Yes, because simply again, when we're talking about, we'll go back one other fine, those locations have probably been timely posted in Commissioner Court's board, so they're going to be alerted that they're going to be there.
Whose responsibility is it for that posting? I presume the party does that?
Yes, the party does that. Did I see you've raised your hand several times?
I was wondering who was responsible for setting the location.
The locations are set by the county and the party.
I know for a fact that the precinct that is joining mine, I'm the judge and the precinct chairman for my precinct, they do not have a chair at all in there. So you're saying I will have a packet, when I pick up all the voting materials, I'll have a packet for that precinct also?
Yes. And that's a very good question. That's a really good question.
If anybody's going to run that precinct, I've got to surrender that packet to them. If nobody shows up, I'm just going to turn it back into the county.
That is correct.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Now, did everybody hear that question? Because that's a very good one. Good question. Everybody heard that one? Okay. Because what we're talking about, if there is a precinct that does not have a precinct chair in it, then, and no one comes and claims that precinct, or that packet, then that goes back to the county. And then those seats are done, large seats, or those are filled for people that can go back to the vacancy committee and wanting to have some, to get into fill those seats.
Which packet? I'll go back to that question. Which packet? You seem to be referring to two packets, one for the election and one for the
Well, you get election supplies.
Yeah.
But then, okay, that's a good question, Joan. You get election supplies, and then the packets are going to be these. This is what you're going to be. This is going to be the packet for all that we're going to be talking about tonight. And the outside packet is going to be this. But what's inside of it is going to be this.
And who gives us that?
Well, when you go to pick up your election supplies, you'll either see me or Margie or somebody there. We're going to be helping to hand out. And if you have any other last-minute questions, we'll have a booth there so you can ask us for questions.
So if I'm the precinct chair at 7:01, somebody walks in and says, I want to be the chair, does that happen? Or I have...
You're the temporary precinct convention chair. And I said that right.
Some registered voter, Republican registered voter, walks in and says, I want the packet.
You are the presumed to be the incumbent. If you're the incumbent chair and you do not have an opponent, then you are the temporary precinct convention chair.
And at your precinct convention, it's actually voted on if somebody else wants to.
There's an election, there's a nomination, an election, and then you move into being from temporary to permanent status.
But you have to be elected.
Yes.
And this packet will be at the Todd Street location?
Wherever you're going, yes, the Todd Street, yes it is.
Come to our booth to get your packet.
Yes. Now you'll get your, you'll come in, get your precinct convention, you'll get your precinct, you'll get your election material. You'll get that's separate over there. You got to sign all the stuff over there. Then you're going to have to go over to another booth to get the packets.
Excuse me. Recall the sentences you just say at last time. As a party upon the location for the precinct convention, why the party do not inform for every election judge or precinct chair in advance? Because you see, after 7 we have to close.
We're going to get to that, Tony.
Yeah, we have to close the machine.
We're going to get to that, Tony.
Everything.
Okay.
And then they do not know where's the location. That's why in 2012, nobody come to my precinct for the precinct convention.
How many people write an endorsement letter? How many precinct chairs send out an endorsement letter? Okay? I send out an endorsement letter, and I made an invitation to come to the caucus. And I've had some people call me and say, "What's the caucus?" So it's the convention. It's either term. Yes. The precinct.
Yes,
I'm
Jen.
sorry, but I'm still confused. To me, there are 2 packets. One for the election results,
Right. That's
the
something.
tape, all that. And that has to go to the,
That we're not talking about that packet. That's not a packet. That's part of your supplies. That's the election box.
that to the election results people if we also have to run the precinct convention right away.
That's a good question. I bet you we're going to get to that.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no incumbent precinct chair, then an unopposed candidate for the precinct chair may serve. So that means that if there is an election, if there is a precinct chair and their opponent, can they walk in there and duke it out? No. It has to be somebody else that's not involved with that. But then they can be elected to be either the permanent precinct convention chair. If neither of those describes takes possession of the packet by 7:01, then the first person is eligible to participate in the precinct convention by asking the election judge. All clear? Okay.
Charlotte, to answer his question, microphone please. If somebody comes and asks, hey, that's a
If you're the election judge and you're the precinct chair and someone comes to ask you for the packet, you can already have taken possession of it and say, I already have taken possession of it. You don't have to give it to them.
No, I was just referring to if there's 2 people.
Well, I know,
that
but
are-
his question
was, yeah.
if somebody asks you. So they need to know you do not have to give that packet away. You have already taken possession of it.
So one of the first things that as the temporary precinct convention chair does is appoint a temporary precinct convention secretary. That's hard to say.
Yeah, say it 3 times.
No. And this is one of the first things you really want to do. And what's the reason for doing that? Is because all those people that are going to come in, and I'm going to say all those people because we're hoping to get a lot of people that are involved, is they're going to be able to volunteer, they're going to be able to verify or help with the oath of affiliation if you are still tied up with the election, getting people through the election process.
Question, as part of the verification process are your poll books.
Mm-hmm.
And your instruction is to take them down to Todd Street.
Yeah.
How can you verify those?
They are completely prepared for you to wait as far as where you have your roll books, your voter roll books. Do you need to tear down there like in the the general election where everybody's just saying, where are you, where are you, where are you? Everybody understands that you're going to be going to convention this time. And also what I've been told is that there is going to be in one of your, now this will be in, Joan, this will be in your election supplies, that there would be a waiver for you to sign if there was a clerk that as an election judge, you would sign that waiver and that they could take the election results, the packets to the...
You start your convention at 7:30, and you're in process of the convention. Somebody walks in at 8 o'clock, and they want to participate, and they don't have any of the only who you want is that precinct.
That's great. That's a great question. What if somebody comes in there at 8 o'clock and you don't have the poll books with you? And let's say you just can't get in, you can't get into Harris Votes, you can't get into any of those things. What's the tool to use? Oath of affiliation. The oath of affiliation. Because when they're going to check where they are, whether they have status, where they lived in there. And the best way to do that is not to deny anyone the right to participate or to be involved. Yes, sir.
That with the poll books, from the combined polls and the poll books, are they going to be separated as far as different precincts?
No.
So that,
They're by precinct.
No, they're not. They're not separated. No.
Your poll book will be by
They're
precinct.
combined, they're not separated.
No, they're always by precinct.
Usually they're always by precincts. That's been when they've come in there. No?
no, you're all mixed up. So if you're running two precincts for one election, they will all be mixed up. It will be in alphabetical order.
All right. So they will be in alphabetical order is what they're telling me, is they're going to be in alphabetical order, and you're going to go through that. So that's where, you're going to have to...
So again, if there's 5 precincts...
The precinct number is there. It's on the list. It's on the list.
If
you're having 5 different precinct meetings at the social center, who's got...
You're going to have fun.
There will be challenges. All right. Now, when we're talking about a quorum, how many... Yeah, well, yes, you're going to have 5 secretaries, and you're going to have a challenge going through that and signing everybody up. But what you want to do is you want to be able to verify as much as you can. If you cannot verify, you go back to the oath of affiliation, and that might just speed. Now, there's going to be some slips. There are also going to be slips of people that, that they have voted.
And they stamped my card, too, when I voted.
Well, I don't think we're going to be doing a stamp. We can't stamp anybody's driver's license anymore, so I don't think that's going to be...
No, they stamped my voter registration.
I brought my voter registration.
I did, but...
I'm sorry, but I'm losing my voice. Take an iPad or your computer, go to Harris Votes. It's real fast to verify anybody, and you can do it on the computer. Your books are already going to be gone. You're going to send a clerk, and we have already received the forms from Stan Stanner to send in. I've already sent mine in as for a clerk to take my supplies in, so I can have the convention.
Stan's program is wonderful, but it's about 50% reliable in terms of being able to verify that they are a precinct member and live in...
No, I have always found it to be accurate.
I've always been able to find most everybody that I'm doing. But all right, what is a quorum? For the convention process, a quorum is 1. That means if you don't have a crowd that comes and rushes in the door, that is that quorum of 1 that you have taken possession of the packet, and you have opened it up. You have called your meeting to order. Then you are the temporary precinct convention chair. It's taken me 5 sessions to be able to say that without stumbling over it, I want you to know. Then you qualify your participants, which for some of you, that's going to be a challenge. But announce the agenda, the rules, elect a permanent precinct convention chair. And this does not make, there's some people that are under the misinterpretation that when someone is the convention chair, that they become the precinct chair. Is that true? No. You're only the convention precinct chair for that night. The precinct chair is there for the election of 2 years. What you're also going to do is announce the SD county and convention time and date. What date is that? Does anybody know? March 19th. Yes. All right. And how many people go to the website? How many people go to HCRP's website? Okay, how many people look at look at Facebook all the time? As many times as you look at Facebook or doing whatever, look at HCRP website, because they're really doing a good job as far as keeping everybody up to date on what they're doing, and that's a good way to keep up. Now, what to expect? You're going to get, the packet is going to tell you, again, how many delegates and alternates that you are going to be able to get. It's also, you're going to see how many you have, and then you're going to, it says here that you must have voted, but actually that's been a change. You do not have to vote, but you do have to do the vote of affiliation. And ask the people that want to be a delegate or an alternate that they are willing to come. Because a lot of times you have a lot of people that sign up and then very few people actually come. So what to expect? You have the delegates and the alternates. The attendance is at the precinct convention you're not required to be a delegate, but your name has to be on. That means that you don't have to even attend the precinct convention to be on there. There's a lot of people that have called me and said, I can't be there that night at 7:30, but can I come? And so you can put those on there, but you always run the risk of, if there's people there that you want to vote in or that not voted, they may not be able to do that. So can names be added after the precinct convention night?
No.
No, they cannot. No name can be added to the list after the convention adjourns, except due to a clerical error. Yes,
Two
sir.
questions.
Sure.
The first one, it used to be you had to vote, okay, and now we've added the oath. So if someone is not voted that day, how does that oath taken by them?
Well, they have the oath of affiliation. They'll read the oath and sign their name. And there's a sheet that will go
If they
through.
aren't going to be there, like
Using the example you gave, could you put me out? I'd like to go. If they haven't voted. Oh, that's a good question.
If they haven't voted, they would sign that form in your presence.
Yeah, they must be in the form. They must be registered.
Okay.
They must be registered.
Second
Okay.
question. Chris mentioned the fact that we could see some hijacking or attempted hijacking of the conventions, because obviously when you go to after you've gotten people in and you're starting to run, then you're going to take the election to see who's going to run the convention, okay? And they could, by vote, if they come in a large number, take over a lot of different precincts. So that and vote whatever they want to vote to go in, because they'll have the majority. Okay,
That's what we're talking about as far as being prepared. And I went to my HOA meeting the other night, and I was telling them about going to early voting, and I hope they'll come to the precinct convention. And this guy looks at me, and I've been in my precinct for 25 years, and he this is my 38th year with HCRP. 38. So, thank you. Yes. So what he told me, he said, yes, but you take the packet. You take the packet, and we have to start at 7:30. And I looked at him and I went, well, I take the packet at 7:01, and we'll start at 7:30, but we may adjourn until 8 o'clock or whenever, because it's whenever the last person votes. So it's not like 8 o'clock. And he said, oh, well, you have to start back at 8 o'clock. And I said, no, I have to start when the last voter is finished voting, because they may want to be in there. But I had never seen this guy before. So I know that there's people out there that are really looking forward to being in this. A lot of people may come into the precinct convention thinking that they're going to be a national delegate. Because I've had people come up and say, yeah, well, I want to be a delegate and I want to go to the national convention. And I'm like, oh, me too. And I'm in my 38th year. How's that working? So, so be prepared for that question, though, because I've gotten a few really enthusiastic people that said, oh, yeah, I'm going to come to the convention because I want to be a delegate to the national.
Okay. For somebody that's at the convention and they have 3 friends
that are not there, and she'd like to sign them up, what bits of information or identifiers should that friend have on those 3 people in order to fill in the forms?
That's a great question. What information should you have? You'd have name, address, and that's about, I think, we'll get to that in just a minute, and I'll show you exactly where we're going with that one. And then what to expect with resolutions, announcements. When you're finished, when you have your adjournment, you allow 30 minutes for people to either take a picture or to record what you're going with. And the paperwork, this is really, really important about this convention process, because this is the start that starts out where you can go to each different level, is the paperwork must... The paperwork must not leave with anyone but the permanent precinct convention chair or secretary. And what's the reason for that? The reason for that is that if it gets lost, all the people that want to come to that convention, the Senate convention, if that's lost, if it's not turned in within the 3-day period, none of those people are going to be eligible to go. So you want to make sure that you get that all finished. Now, this is the packet. Now, if we can go back to, we have given you a handout here, and the handout, I'd like you to go to that. There's several handouts here. One of them is going to be the Robert's Rule of Order, because this, of course, is a convention, so you want to go through Robert's Rule of Orders. So we've kind of given you a cheat sheet on what to do. So I'm not going to go through that because I think everybody here can read, so I want you to really kind of keep it for you as a resource. The next part of this is what we're going to do is it's kind of a reiteration of what we've been going through on these slides. And the reason and the purpose for having a convention is to elect alternate delegates and alternates and to pass resolutions. That's the number one. And anyone who didn't vote in the primary can take and complete the oath of affiliation. And election judges are allowed to participate in the convention after closing down the polls and prior to returning the ballots. However, there's going to be that waiver that if you want to set that up, feel free to do that. Because, you know, one of your clerks could take that to the receiver, and you can still stay behind and do the precinct convention. The next page is we have our actual, this will be what's in your packet, is an actual precinct convention script. Now, this is only a sample. The one that you will be using will be in your packet. It will not be this one, but we wanted you to be familiar with what's going on. And actually, it just goes down the page, and this is how you will conduct. So you can have a pretty succinct precinct convention. The temporary chair will appoint a temporary convention secretary. Woohoo. And then to go through that, to change from temporary to permanent is how you go through and you have nominations and you have elections.
What page are you on?
I'm on page 2. I'm on page 2 on your handout. We're looking at your handout now.
Conducting a precinct convention.
This where it says conducting a precinct convention. I'm sorry. And this is where, and this is where I'm going through. Yeah, they are. And when we're talking about the precinct convention script, this is a sample. This is going to be an exact thing that would be in your packet, but we just want you to be familiar so you can read through that, so you're going to be familiar with going through that and going down. So if you go to the next page, which would be 3, it's going step by step. There's a way to make elections on your delegates. One will take them either each one by one, and they're voted on, and then they're nominated, they're voted on, and then that means they're elected. Or you go by, well, if there's not so many people, like I think I had 31 delegates and and alternates on mine, and I think I had maybe 10, 12 people that came. So what I did is, when talking to people, I filled those in, we nominated those people, and we elected those people to that point. And then after you've gotten all your delegates and your alternates elected, you go into resolutions and that discussion that would be on any of that. Everybody with me? Now, there's also the next page on there. If you'd see that, it says the precinct convention, and there's a dot. My precinct is 828, so it would be Republican precinct 828 minutes for me. And follow through. So even that convention, if the convention secretary, she doesn't have to sit there and just write down all this. What she really needs to do is just follow through with this, she or he, and follow through this, and that will be a way to make sure that you have followed your Robert's Rule of Orders and you have conducted a correct precinct convention. Yeah, it's a fill in the blanks thing. And then your precinct chair, your permanent chair, and your secretary will sign. Now, here on the very back, this is what the sign-in sheet will look like. This is where people come in, and this is where they will be signing in, and the verification process will take place. The next page.
Are you suggesting that during the day you could let someone volunteer for that sheet, and then they can verify that they're there in the evening? Is that part of the process?
No, this only starts when it's at 7:30 when you convene. At 7:01 you take possession of the packet. But at 7:30, that's when you tell your people that you're going to convene.
So nobody can sign in to participate until 7:30?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm strictly an election judge, and typically I'm judge in precinct or combined precincts. Well, I'm not judging, so I have no involvement in that. Turning a packet over at 7:01 is physically impossible. The JBCs have to be run, tapes have to be taken. I'm not clear on what exactly the judge alone, not going to participate in the convention, has to do over and above what we normally do in a non-primary.
That's a great question. Asking if you're an election judge and you're not going to be participating in any of the precincts that you are the election judge of. That means that just like a voter, that person would come up to you at 7:01 and say, I'd like the packet, the precinct convention packet for precinct 7, blah, blah, blah. That means you would go and you would check and verify that they were, number one, a resident in there, that they had been there. That's the number one criteria of what you're going to be doing in there. And if they had not voted, then they do the oath of affiliation. Or do they do the oath of affiliation? No. They take the packet.
Okay. I have no idea who the president precinct chair is. Someone walks up to me.
You may not have one.
Won't the name be on the packet?
No.
If there is one?
No.
Anybody can come in and take that packet.
That's the number one point, is anyone may take that packet. Yes, Jerry?
If you're the current precinct chair in a contested race, and you want to make sure you get that packet, you just want to make sure that you're there at 7:01?
If you're in a contested race, you may not. You may not take possession of that packet at 7:01 because you are in a contested race. Now, someone else can take that packet on your behalf and then nominate you as being the permanent precinct or the permanent precinct convention chair, but that has to go through a nomination period. But because you're in an
That means I can't be there at 7:01 because I can't be at the poll if I'm on the ballot.
I think this is in election supply party party. They give the slip for the Democrat or Republican. Even if you go to vote early, after you vote, they give you at that court. After you finish it, it is each let machine. You go back to JBC. You ask JVC will give you slip like this if you are a Republican. And if you are a Democrat, they also give you slip like this if you're Democrat. So the voter will show this slip for you, and you know exactly who the voter for. That's a Republican or Democrat, because in the slip it pretty very clearly right there as Republican.
You still have to verify that they're in the precinct book, correct?
Yes.
Regardless.
What's on the slip that he's talking about?
So what we're going to be talking, what of course we're going to do is, with looking at the packet, is you're going to have 3 forms: the attendance list, which has the voter registration, name, address, phone number, email; the delegate list, the alternate list, and the instructions to the deadline and deadlines to return the packet, which is very important.
Sorry.
Yes.
I am precinct chair. I'm hosting, I believe, four other precincts.
Do I get all 5 packets? If nobody claims the other packets, do I turn them in? If people do claim them, do they bring them back to me? Do they turn them in themselves?
They turn them in themselves.
They turn them
that
in
becomes their responsibility. And then also, there is going to be where they sign off that they took that from you. So that relieves you of the responsibility of that, bringing that back.
So make sure before I release it to sign off.
Yes.
To have them sign off.
Very good question.
Thank you.
On this page here where it says precinct chairs endorsing the resolution for consideration, would that be for those holding multiple precincts at their location, or what exactly? This is page 2 of 2. It's on the resolution.
It's like you're endorsing.
But this says precinct chairs endorsing this resolution.
Do you understand his question?
No, which one?
How I'm understanding, this is just a copy, a sample of a resolution, and what he's asking for is the precinct chairs, but that's only if somebody brings in a resolution and you want to put your name on that, you like that resolution or whatever, you want to endorse that resolution.
Well, these resolutions, there's 2 resolutions that are on the very back of this handout. And those 2 resolutions will be in your packet. And those are resolutions that had to be passed at a certain time here to be able to have the precinct convention. So these are already been in there. They're almost a working resolution that has been brought to you to have the precinct convention. The next one with that one, again, is where the having the combined resolutions, that was being able to happen. Okay? Are we clear?
So we go over these resolutions. These are the resolutions we're going to vote.
No, I think those are just resolutions that we had to get to this place. We had to get to have the meetings and have the conventions at their same. Yes. Well, no, they're not samples. They've already been through and they've already been voted as.
Yes.
So we're like the resolutions
Yeah, read them at home, and then I think that'll be really clear as far as what we're doing on that. So on the post-convention, what we're doing is that the permanent convention must sign and transmit the original 3 copies. And they want them returned where? Okay, here in Wynwood. Wynwood Lane. They want those returned. In person, you can return them by the 3rd day after the convention, which would be Friday, March 4th. To postmark them, I don't know about y'all, but this is really kind of important. If you trust the snail mail, good for you. But I'm not really that trustworthy, so I'm going to bring mine in. It's kind of a trek. It's a labor of love, but it's a real dedication to maybe getting the job done well.
How late will this facility be open?
Bring in the next day.
Yeah, you have up to 3 days. That's a good question. Write that one down, because I'm not sure how.
Call 713-999-1999. Ask.
Good, there you go.
Because if you don't turn in your credentials, then everyone that wants to participate is going to be in jeopardy, and that's going to fall on you. So the precinct chairs and this precinct convention, that's doing the heavy lifting of getting the voice up through the precinct convention, to the county convention, up to the state convention, and then, of course, the national convention.
When is the state convention?
The state conventions are in the very back. All the dates are going to be. And we're going to be covering that when we go in there.
May I interrupt one more time?
And with the office hours here, I don't think that you should really consider the office hours anything other than 9 to 5 at this point. So I think that the next day would be good, and you have 3 days to get after that. So I would do that within there.
Charlotte, I'd strongly encourage to bring them in. I agree with Charlotte. Don't trust the snail mail. One year I did trust the snail mail. I almost didn't get to go to the convention, and none of my delegates could go until I came down and really fought, because mine arrived one day too late, so they wouldn't accept it, even though I had mailed it in time. So don't trust the mail. You may have more of a problem and have to come down and spend more time here than it takes to just come drop it off.
Well, thank you, Nancy. And you're going to be...
You said about registered mail, you'd have evidence, correct?
There you go. Yeah, there you go. There's a good idea. Okay.
Your delegates will be in question, and the credentials committee is going to ask to see that receipt. So it has our credentials for the SD. It is better if you bring it in person, because those, like Nancy said, those delegates are in question, and there's not any proof unless you bring that receipt to the credentials committee and say, see, I mailed it beforehand.
Or it gets there after. Let's move on.
And I also think that remember, when you're going to have three copies of all these credentials. Why are you going to have those 3 copies? One of them is to safeguard, so you can have a copy. If something should lose, even here, you can prove, okay, this was all done. This was done right here. So you want to have the permanent convention chair should always maintain her own and his or her own copies. So Margie's going to follow up. Let's do a 5-minute break here. Would everybody be in favor of that? But we're going to start back right quick so we can get you out of here by 9 p.m. sharp. 8:20. Thank you.